Rip it up! The words froze the ballroom, cameras clicked, 100 phones lifted. On stage, under white lights, a homeless man in a thrift store blazer faced a billionaire holding a giant check. Donovan Vale's smile didn't reach his eyes. "That's $1 million, Jonah." Laughter rippled from tables. It wasn't kind. Jonah Ray's jaw tightened. "Rip it up." The MC swallowed. The string quartet stopped mid-note. A producer hissed into a headset. Security shifted. Vale tilted the check toward the crowd. "This is what generosity looks like," he said into the mic. "A hero deserves it." Jonah leaned into the mic. "A hero doesn't bury people under paperwork." Murmurs. A flashbulb popped. Vale's lips barely moved. "Careful," he said, the smile fixed, voice low enough that only the front row could hear. "You don't want to waste a moment like this." "I'm not wasting it," Jonah said. He looked right into the nearest camera. "Riverside Shelter, open it tonight." The room churned. A woman in a silver dress whispered, "What shelter?" into a flute of champagne. Vale lifted a hand for calm. "Mr. Ray's," he said, "what if the offer isn't money?" A cue. The backstage curtain stirred. A teenage boy stepped out, skinny in a borrowed suit, a chipped tooth catching the light. He scanned the crowd until his eyes locked on Jonah. The boy swallowed. "Dad?" Every chair scraped back at once. Jonah didn't move. He couldn't. He stared, the mic shaking in his hand. "Mateo," the boy nodded. "It's me." The room held its breath. 2 weeks earlier, the stroller slipped. It was fast. One moment it rested against a woman's thigh while she fished for a pacifier. Then a wheel caught the groove of the platform. It rolled, tilted. The handle bounced over the yellow line. It tipped into empty air. "Hey!" someone screamed. Jonah didn't look around for help. He didn't calculate. He moved. Boots hit gravel. A suitcase thudded behind him. The rails hummed a warning under his feet, a whisper turning into a roar. The stroller clattered against the far rail, pivoted and tilted toward the third rail. He lunged, hands on the frame. The infant inside blinked, startled, a pink hat sliding over one eye. The platform above erupted into panicked noise. Back up, the train. The tunnel was a mouthful of steel. The lights was a white, hot glare. Jonah shoved the stroller up at an angle, arms shaking. A man on the platform grabbed the handle and dragged. The stroller went up. Jonah slipped. His shins slammed the rail. Sparks spat. "Move," a transit worker bellowed. He scrambled, palms raw, and reached up. Hands grabbed his wrists. The edge of the platform tore the skin on his forearms. He swung his legs, found zero traction, swallowed hot metal air, and felt the surge of the train shove the tunnel's breath against him. The train blasted past an arm's length from his boots. People screamed. The stroller's wheels rattled. A pacifier bounced once and disappeared into the crack. Jonah's hat flew off. A phone clattered onto his chest. He didn't feel pain until someone yanked him onto the platform and his knees met concrete. The mother collapsed beside the stroller, sobbing, hands on the baby's cheeks. "Oh my God," she kept saying, voice raw. Jonah rolled onto his side, coughing black dirt, trembling. The teenage boy with the chipped tooth had the phone again. He leaned over, camera shaking, breath fast. "Yo," he panted to a friend. He straight jumped. A hand entered the frame to steady it. "Get his face," someone said. The camera wobbled toward Jonah. He blinked into it, eyes bloodshot. The boy zoomed in, mouth open at the bleeding scrapes on Jonah's arms. "Sir," a transit cop said, "do you need a paramedic?" Jonah sat up, dazed. He stared at the mother. "You okay?" She nodded, sobbing harder now that it was over. She reached for him. "Thank you," she said, voice breaking. Thank you," he shook his head. "Hold your baby." He stood a little too fast. The station rocked with noise. He limped to the nearest pillar and slid down, his breath hitching in his chest. The boy's camera held on him. "What's your name?" the boy asked. Jonah looked at him. The chipped tooth flashed. The kid's hair stuck up like he'd been running. The boy's eyes were familiar in a way that made Jonah's ribs ache without understanding why. "Ray's," he said. "Spell it." Jonah didn't. He looked at the baby again. The train moved out. The tunnel exhaled. Transit workers waved people back. The boy was still filming when Jonah forced himself to stand, pulled a knit cap from his pocket, and offered it to the mother. "He'll need it outside," he said. She took it with shaking hands. "What can I give you, please?" He shook his head. He turned away and limped up the cracked stairs into light. The video hit 3 million views by midnight, 10 million by morning, 17 by noon. The comments argued about how the stroller rolled, whether the mother had been careless, whether Jonah was a plant, whether he was a fake. Threads cropped his face and zoomed on the scabbed skin. One account froze on the frame where he looked up. eyes wet with grit. A bartender at the corner threw a towel over his shoulder and stuck his phone in the video loop by the register. A dry cleaner put a screenshot on the window with "Our Hero" in blue marker. A church group pulled casseroles from ovens and carried them to the bridge where men slept. Jonah missed most of it. He washed the grit out of his cuts in a gas station sink and wrapped his arms in gauze from a free clinic. He fell asleep on a bench under the overpass, heat from the traffic above a steady hum. He woke to 4 cameras and a woman trying to press a 20 into his palm. He shook his head. "Give it to the shelter," he said. "There is no shelter," she said. "Not anymore." He stared. "Riverside." "They closed it last week," she said. "Funding." He felt it like a punch he'd expected anyway. The cots, the hot coffee, the cinderblock room with the one space heater that clicked at night. Gone. By noon, a black SUV idled at the curb where the overpass shadow ended. A man with a crisp haircut got out and said Jonah's last name like it belonged to him. "Mr. Reyes, Mr. Vale would like a word." Jonah rested his hands on the concrete ledge. "Who?" "Donovan Vale," the man said, as if the name explained the gravity of the request. "We can offer lunch, a shower, and a statement we can run with. We want to help." "Help who?" Jonah asked. "You," the man said, and held the door. Vale Urban's headquarters was a glass needle. The lobby was marble that made footsteps sound like judgment. The receptionist said Jonah's name with the same easy possession as the driver. An assistant with a tablet smiled like she was on a poster for empathy. "Mr. Reyes," she said, "we are grateful." She pressed the elevator button with one manicured finger. Music flowed like a hotel hallway. The top floor office did not have a desk. It had a view. The city lay under glass, a miniature. Donovan Vale stood in front of it in shirt sleeves, tie loosened like he had been working hard on compassion. "You made this city proud," he said. His hair was silver in a controlled way. His teeth were expensive. He gestured to a long table rather than the couch. "Sit. Sandwich." Jonah didn't sit. He washed his hands slowly in a bathroom that smelled like citrus and looked like a museum. He came back to the table. The assistant set a glass of water in front of him, then placed a folder beside it with a casual motion that made the folder the point. Vale sat, forearms on the table, sleeves rolled just enough to suggest he remembered labor existed. "We have a foundation," he said. "We are going to make a campaign around everyday heroism. We want to put you at the center. You will speak. You will be paid. We have a check for $100,000 today and the remainder after the press tour." "The remainder," Jonah said. "1 million, Vale said, like he was describing weather. "Also, a hotel for as long as you need." He slid the folder closer with one finger. "Just some standard agreements. We protect you, you protect us." Jonah glanced down. The top document was an NDA with Vale Urban letterhead. The second page said he would refrain from disparaging Vale Urban or affiliates. The third said he would participate in events highlighting Vale Urban's commitment to community. The fourth page was blank on purpose. Jonah tapped the corner of the folder. "You closed Riverside last week." "That wasn't me," Vale said lightly. "The city made that decision." "We support. You own the building," Jonah said. Vale's smile cooled half a degree. "My company owns many buildings." "I did the inspection at Oak Towers," Jonah said. He said it like a knife laid gently on a table. 5 years ago." Vale blinked once, not in surprise, in calculation. "You're a safety inspector." "Was," Jonah said. "I flagged the sealed fire doors." He lifted his forearms, gauze luminous against tanned skin. "They pushed me off the job, said I was difficult, said I didn't understand how development works." Vale sat back. "Mr. Reyes, I am sorry for whatever happened to you. However, today we're talking about what happened on a platform." Jonah looked out at the city through the glass. The tiny patch where Oak Towers had stood was a smooth parking lot now. The fire had been a 3-alarm story for 2 nights. Then it had been a wall of names and candles, then a list of lawsuits, then silence. "My wife didn't get to finish packing," Jonah said, not looking at Vale. "She went back for the photos, the stairwell filled with smoke. They found her by the second floor door. It was wired shut." Silence pooled in the room. Vale didn't reach for sympathy. He reached for the next card. "We're offering you a way to make something good from all of it," he said. "Let us help you. Let us tell your story. That's how change happens." Jonah nodded once, as if taking a heartbeat to read the script he was being handed. "I need help," he said. Vale relaxed. "Of course." "I need you to find my son," Jonah said. He did not blink. "Mateo. He went into foster care when I lost the apartment. I haven't seen him in 3 years. I want him back." Vale dropped his eyes to the folder. We can look into that, he said. We have resources. Do that, Jonah said. You can keep your check. He stood. The assistant took a step forward. Mr. Reyes, Jonah looked at Vale. Open Riverside, he said. Make what you did right. We didn't, Vale started. He stopped. He reached for the folder again, like a magician going back to the prop that always worked. There's an event next week. It's for the foundation. Come, we can announce good news. People want to help you. People kept the doors closed, Jonah said. He turned toward the elevator. I'll bring my own news. Mia Cheng found him on the sidewalk 2 blocks from Vale Urban. She held her phone like it was a bridge, not a weapon. You're Jonah, she said, breathless. I'm Mia. I messaged you. We're live in 20. Talk to me. He eyed the lavalier mic clipped to her collar. You already are, she smiled. It was real. Okay, don't perform. Just say what you want. He shrugged. Look at the doors you closed, he said. That's it. Who closed them? Mia asked. Jonah looked down at his bandaged arms. The man in the glass building. Mia's eyebrows went up. On record, he nodded. She took a breath. Do you have proof? Jonah said nothing. Proof was ash. The evacuation maps had burned with the walls. His reports had been shredded with his reputation. He had one thing, a voicemail to a number on a business card from a year when he still believed calling a hotline did anything. Mia saw the silence and didn't push. You'll be at the gala. He stared past her at a delivery truck double parked, driver staring down at a phone, nothing in the city stopping. I'll be somewhere, he said. Let me help, Mia said. If you won't take money, let me give you minutes. Outside the frame, in the hum of the street, a teenage boy with a chipped tooth crossed to the bodega and saw the headline on the TV above the chips, Subway hero rejects money. He stopped, plastic bag hanging from his wrist, and stared at a face that had been asleep on the other side of a courtroom 3 years ago. Tio, you okay? The clerk asked. The boy swallowed. Do you have a charger? He asked. I need to DM someone. The fundraiser had chandeliers like upside-down forests. Women in dresses that moved like water. Men in black suits arranged in clusters around small tables covered in white linen and voter lists. Jonah didn't fit. He didn't try. When the MC called his name, he walked onto the stage in a jacket someone in a church basement had pressed with love and a scorch mark. The check was already there, 5 feet long, Vale Urban's logo in the corner like a brand. The room stood. It didn't clap like it did for celebrities. It clapped like it had to be seen clapping. Vale stepped forward, microphone held like an extension of his hand. This city belongs to people like this man, he said. People who leap when it counts. Jonah didn't take the microphone. He leaned toward it. Riverside, he said. Open it tonight. The crowd tittered, then looked to Vale to know whether to laugh or to admire. Vale smiled at them. We are proud to announce, he said smoothly, that we are working with the city on a new initiative. Jonah shook his head. You shut doors, then you sell new locks, he said. Rip up your check. Mr. Reyes, Vale said, still smiling. What if the offer isn't money? Mateo stepped out. The lights hit his face and he squinted. He looked smaller than he had on the platform, not because he was younger, but because he was trying not to cry in front of strangers. He walked to the lectern, eyes on Jonah. It's me, he said again, like he was still convincing himself. It's Tio. Jonah's hand found the lectern. He didn't know he'd moved until his knuckles pressed the wood. He dragged in a breath that shook. Let me see you, he said. Tio took another step. The cameras leaned with him. Every 3 months, Tio said, words rushing now, trying to close the gap of years in a sentence. I asked. They said you didn't call. They said you didn't show. They said you didn't want me. Jonah flinched like from a thrown bottle. They lied. They said you were in jail, Tio said, voice breaking. I kept looking anyway. Jonah nodded. Good. I filmed you, Tio said, something like wonder and terror crashing together. I didn't know. Jonah took 3 steps and Tio met him there. They didn't hug like in movies. They collided like 2 people who had been moving toward a door for too long and finally found it open. The ballroom exhaled. People wiped mascara. Vale, 3 feet away, let the smile finally reach his eyes. He stepped close, hand out. We are glad to help families find each other, he said into the mic. Jonah pulled back, just enough to look at Tio's face with both hands on his shoulders. He looked at Vale. What did you do? He asked. Vale's smile didn't change. We did what we said we would, he said. We found your son. You found him to use him, Mia said from the press pit. Her voice cut across the room like a string snapping. Say it. Vale's jaw moved 1/8 of an inch. Security turned toward her. She held up her press badge. You're welcome, she said to Jonah, softer. Tio leaned into the microphone. I messaged her, he said. She set it up so you couldn't say I didn't try. He was going to come anyway. I was, Jonah said, truth sitting between them like a chair neither wanted to sit in. He turned to Vale. Open Riverside, you got your picture. Of course, Vale said. We'll allocate funds. Not funds, Jonah said. He nodded to the balcony. The camera swung. 3 women stood there, arms folded, a baby in a sling, a handwritten sign that said Riverside has babies too. The mother from the platform held the sling tight. Her eyes were rimmed red. She caught Jonah's eye and lifted her chin. The crowd looked from her to Vale like tennis. Vale's face was glass now. He ran through the arithmetic behind his eyes. We will open the shelter, he said, tonight. And, Jonah asked. Mr. Rays, Jonah raised a hand, and you admit what you did at Oak Towers. A cold wind moved through a room with no windows. People traded glances. The city council member at table 4 adjusted his tie. Vale's head turned half a degree toward someone in the wings. We are done here, Vale said, pleasant again. Enjoy your night. Mia lifted her phone. Play it, she said. The speakers crackled. A voice came out, tinny, recorded in the past when phones made people believe in systems. Hi, Jonah's voice said. Younger by a few years. My name is Jonah Rays. I'm a consultant on the Oak Towers retrofit. The fire doors on the 2nd and 3rd floors are chained. Yes, I said chained. I need someone to come down here and fix it before someone dies. The recording continued. The person on the other end gave a reference number, promised a callback. The date stamp on his screen was 3 days before the fire. The room stopped pretending it was a party. Vale's smile didn't find a place to land. He took a step forward. Anyone can doctor audio. Show us your logs, Mia said. From the balcony, the mother with the sling shouted, He told you. Vale's eyes flicked to the exit. His PR head touched her ear. The board chair, a woman with a haircut like a gavel, leaned in to whisper. Vale lifted the mic. We will investigate, he said. If there were mistakes, admit it, Jonah said, not moving. His voice was low, almost gentle. Say it. Tio stood at his side. He didn't know which one to watch, the man who had turned money into a stage or the man who had turned a platform into a roof. Vale closed his eyes for one count that was exactly as long as advice travels from a lawyer to a client across a room. We failed people, he said finally. The words sounded like they'd been dragged through gravel. He swallowed. We closed a door that should have been open. That's on us. It wasn't everything. It was enough to move the crowd from breath to sound again. Riverside opens tonight, Vale said. He looked at his board chair. She stared back, unblinking. He turned back to the mic before he could think better of it. 50 million to a housing trust controlled by an independent board. Not me. Mr. Rays, if he'll have it, chair it. No NDA, no strings. And we'll let auditors comb through Oak Towers from blueprints to emails. He exhaled. On camera. It wasn't the plan. The plan had been a check, a hug, a headline. The plan had been the boy as a bow on a box. Jonah looked at Tio at the balcony, at the stage lights that made everything look cleaner than it was. He nodded once. Accepted, he said. Then he lifted the mic again. But start with COTS, tonight, not with trust funds. Vale glanced at the board chair. She extended her palm like a dealer sliding a card. It said, You are committed now. He nodded to a staffer. Open the shelter, he said into his headset, voice a different register now. Now. A tech ran from the back. A woman in a black dress cried quietly with relief she didn't know why. A man updated a headline he'd already sent. The ballroom turned into a coalition on the fly. They opened Riverside at 11:26 p.m. The bolt cutters were ceremonial. The real work was answering the door. Men dragged cots out of storage. Volunteers unrolled sheets that smelled like soap and old dust. Someone switched on the coffee machine and hoped the ancient wiring would cooperate. The mother from the subway set the sling down near the far wall and laid her baby between 2 folded blankets. She buried her face in her hands for a moment, then stood and started handing out cups. Jonah came through the door with Tio. They stopped just inside. It looked exactly like he remembered, and not at all. The sound of tired people trying not to make noise, a cough that rattled too much, a laugh at a joke that would not be funny in daylight. He turned and saw a man he had slept beside last winter holding a pillow to his chest like a secret. Jonah, the man said, as if he'd run into him in a grocery store aisle. Look at this. He held up a laminated card. It had a list of housing clinics and hours. They put it back, the man said, voice cracking. Good, Jonah said. You can stop scamming the dentist for coffee. I never scammed, the man started, then grinned. Okay, a little. Tio hovered, hands in his pockets, taking in the world his father had been living in. He tried not to show the way his lungs pulled in the smell and made pictures of nights he'd imagined from the inside of group home bunk beds. A volunteer appeared at Jonah's elbow. "It's not much," she said. "It's tonight." He nodded. "That's what matters." At the far end of the room, Vale stood near the door, tie gone, hair a little less arranged. He watched cots be cots and tried to switch languages fast enough to be understood. People ignored him, which was the sharpest kindness anyone had offered him all night. The board chair stood beside him. "You meant it?" she asked quietly. "Independent trust." "As independent as I can make it," he said. His voice sounded like someone else's to his own ears. "They're going to take me apart," she shrugged. "Maybe you should be taken apart." He watched Jonah lift the sling so the baby could sleep without the strap cutting the mother's shoulder. He watched Tio unfold a blanket and tuck the corners like he'd been doing it in some other room for years. "He'll make it count," Vale said. It wasn't the thing he would have said this morning. Mia filmed none of that. She had shut off her live and was filling cups. She glanced at the door and saw the man who ran maintenance at Oak Towers standing there looking lost. He was the one who had told her years ago that the locks were welded for security. He caught her eye and put his hands up at the chest level like surrender. She nodded once and handed him a cup. "Welcome," she said. He took it and went to the corner and sat with the men he had kicked out of hallways when it snowed. Nobody said anything. He started to cry quietly. Eventually, a hand touched his shoulder. The man nodded without turning. Jonah came over to Mia. "Thank you," he said. "You did it," she said. He shook his head. "People did it," she smiled. "Your people." Tio tugged at Jonah's sleeve. "Dad," he said, the word coming easier now. "What do we do tomorrow?" Jonah looked at the cots, the old coffee machine, the door that would stay open until morning. He looked at Vale, who was being told to carry boxes and was not doing a good job of carrying boxes. He looked at Mia, at the maintenance man, at the mother with the baby, at the volunteer who had forgotten her own coat somewhere and didn't care. "Tomorrow," Jonah said, "we go to Oak Towers." "It's a parking lot," Tio said. "We go anyway," Jonah said. "We say their names where they lived, not just where they burned." Tio nodded. "Okay. And after that," Jonah said, "you're coming with me to sign some papers that say nobody loses you again." Tio's breath caught. He grinned, sudden and crooked. "Okay," he said, "but I'm picking dinner." "Picking dinner is a big job," Jonah said, dead serious. Tio took the seriousness and put it in his pocket like a coin. "It's pizza." Jonah laughed, a sound that sounded like air turning into something softer. He ruffled the back of his son's hair. The chipped tooth flashed. Across the room, Vale approached, hands empty now. He stopped a few feet away. He didn't offer a hand. He didn't know what to offer that wouldn't turn to metal in the air. "You got what you needed," he said. It wasn't a question. "Not yet," Jonah said. He met Vale's eyes, "but it's a start." Vale nodded. He looked smaller under the fluorescent lights. He asked, "Can I come to Oak Towers tomorrow?" Jonah looked at him for a long beat. He thought of the recording, the check, the smile. He thought of the admission, the trust, the bolt cutters, the cots. "Only if you listen," Jonah said. Vale took the instruction like he took oxygen. He nodded. A man at the door yelled, "We need more blankets." The room moved as one being. Someone opened a closet. Someone else ran to the van. Mia set her cup down, picked up her camera, and didn't turn it on. She watched. Tio leaned his head on Jonah's shoulder without asking if it was okay to do that anymore. It was okay. It had always been okay. Outside, the street kept going. A bus hissed. A siren thought about starting and didn't. The city, no different than it had been an hour ago, carried itself a little less like it was alone. Inside, a baby slept. A sign leaned against a folded chair. A billionaire waited. A man who had once lost everything held something that wasn't a check and wasn't a promise and wasn't a stage. He held his son.